were made for more. You probably heard this said before we even started this series, right? Maybe in a song. I know we've done this song quite a few times here. Maybe from your mom or your dad, or maybe on one of those motivational coffee mugs. You were made for more, now go seize the day with your oat milk latte, right? But what does more actually mean? Does it mean more money? Does it mean more success? Does it mean more followers? Because culture today is constantly shouting at us, do more, get more, be more, but it's often pointing us in all the wrong directions. And meanwhile, many Christians are walking around wondering why their lives feel disconnected. Because you love Jesus, right? You go to church, you try your best, but Monday through Saturday feels like you're just stuck on autopilot. And you feel like your faith is something that you pick up and you put down depending on where you are. It's like your Sunday morning self and your Tuesday afternoon self, and we see that they're barely related. So can we be honest today? Because too many of us, myself included, have bought into the lie that faith is something we do, not something we live. Because faith is a part of life, right? That's what we think, that faith is just a part of our life instead of it being the center of it. But today we're going to learn that you weren't just meant for church faith. You were meant for everyday faith. So what is this everyday faith? It's the kind of faith that shows up not just in the sanctuary, but in the carpool line when you're dropping the kids off. Not just during worship, but when you have them deadlines at work that you have to meet. Not just during our quiet times when everything's nice and peaceful, but it's also found in the chaos. So let me paint a picture for you. Have you ever put anything together from IKEA? Almost everybody in this room, right? Like one of the IKEA desks or something, they've got all these million parts. I think we've got a picture of it. That's how some of mine turn out. They don't look like the picture. They've got a million parts and the instructions are written in Swedish. I mean, it's hard to understand some of these things. And that's how a lot of us approach life this way. We're building in pieces. We're trying to keep everything in its own little compartment, right? Here's my family. Here's my job. Here's my hobbies. And here's my Jesus, neatly folded over here in the Sunday drawer. And then we wonder why it feels like nothing fits together. But what if I told you that your life isn't supposed to be built in pieces? It's supposed to be built with purpose. We weren't made for this compartmentalized life. We were made for a Christ-centered life. We were made for a faith that doesn't stay put. We were made with a faith that seeps into every part of our life, like that coffee spill on your kitchen counter that you pretend wasn't there. We've all done that. Faith that sticks to you, that sticks with you in the car, on Zoom calls, in those hard conversations, and while you're staring down at your kid's science project that they brought to you the morning of, right? And we got to stare at it like it's this bomb we have to defuse. We were made for more. And not just more stuff, right? More purpose, more Jesus, more consistency, more influence in ordinary spaces. So let's talk about this everyday faith. Not the kind that just for show, but the kind that actually changes how you treat people around you. The kind that shows up in real life. Because faith wasn't meant to be an accessory. It's meant to be the engine that drives it all. So let's talk about it. So now that we've established, that we were made for more than a Sunday faith, more than this on again, off again spiritual routine, let's talk about the first step towards living that everyday faith, and that is that faith is not a compartment, it is the center. Faith is not a compartment, it's the center. Now, I know that sounds simple, like, yeah, I've heard that before. But let's slow down and really look at how we're living. See, too many of us have unknowingly adopted what I like to call Tupperware Christianity. Got a picture of it here? Tupperware Christianity. It's a container with all these organized compartments in it, right? One little square for rice, one for chicken, one for vegetables if you're doing that kind of thing. And in our case, one tiny little slot for Jesus. We're living like, here's my work life, here's my family life, here's my fitness goals, here's my fantasy football league, and here's my Jesus from 10:30 to noon. He gets that top left compartment. Neat, organized, it's tidy. But here's the problem. That's not how real life is supposed to work. And that's definitely not how our faith is supposed to work. Because when life starts shaking, when you hit traffic and you spill coffee on your shirt, when the meeting goes bad, when the kids are having a meltdown in the back seat, when your anxiety is at an all-time high, our compartmentalized faith doesn't add up. You can't run back to the little Jesus compartment and hope he fixes everything you didn't invite him in to begin with. Because Jesus didn't die and rise again so he could have one part of your schedule. He didn't say, follow me, but only on Sundays and Wednesdays and before meals. What did he say? He said, follow me. Period. That means he wants the whole thing. So let me give you a better image. Life is not a Tupperware container, it's a stew. Track with me here. Life isn't meant to be lived in these separate compartments. It's more like a stew, everything in the pot, influencing everything else. The relationships, the work, the choices, the way you present yourself to the world, it all blends together. And in that mix, faith isn't just one part of the recipe. Faith is the base. It's what everything else draws from, okay? It shapes the flavor, the direction, the meaning of it all. And here's the honest truth. If Jesus isn't shaping every part of your life, he's really not leading any part of it. If he's not leading every part of your life, he's not leading any of it. See, the problem with this I can't even talk today. I can't talk today. Oh my gosh, why did I have to pick such a hard word? See, this faith, right? This Tupperware faith. See, there we go. That's the way you do it right there. This Tupperware faith is that we accidentally create this version of Christianity where Jesus is a guest instead of the owner. He's a guest instead of the owner. And that's not how the gospel works. The gospel doesn't come in to adjust your life, it comes in to rebuild it. You're not asking Jesus to join your story, you're joining his. Okay? So let's get practical. Ask yourself honestly, is Jesus just present in my church life, or is he Lord over my whole life? That's deep. Is Jesus Lord over your spending habits? Even those late night purchases you wish you could take back? Can I get an amen? Is he Lord over your words and your reactions, like when your spouse leaves the dishes close to the sink but not quite in it? Following Jesus means inviting him into every corner of your life, not just the obvious areas, but the quiet, everyday ones too. Because he cares about it all, right? Because he is Lord of all, right? And understand this. Everyday faith isn't about perfection, it's about integration. You don't have to be this flawless Christian who knows the ancient Greek or has it all together every Sunday. What Jesus wants isn't performance. He wants your presence. He's not asking to be boxed off in the spiritual part of your life. He's inviting you to let him into the real, messy, ordinary parts too. Because faith was never meant to be this add-on. It was always meant to be the foundation. So if life feels scattered for you, or your walk with God kind of feels dry or distant, maybe the answer isn't trying to balance Jesus. Maybe it's time to let him be the center of it. Let him be the broth. Let Him shape the flavor of your thoughts. Let Him shape your choices, your relationships. Let Him soak into everyday rhythms until His presence becomes warmth and clarity to it all. Because when Jesus is at the center of it, everything else you'll start to see will fall into place. Point number 2, represent Jesus where you are. But what happens when we actually start living like it? And Paul gives us kind of this game-changing perspective in Colossians 3:17. He says this, whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus. Now Paul's right there. Whatever you do. That means preaching on stage? Yeah. That means parenting toddlers who cry because their banana is too curvy? Also, yes. That means replying to your boss's 17th mean email before lunch? Yeah. That means folding laundry, checking homework, cleaning out the fridge, and not losing your salvation when you step on a Lego? You guessed it. Yes. This is where everyday faith comes alive, because if faith isn't just for Sunday and Jesus isn't just in a box, then that means our entire life is now the platform where our faith gets lived out. Because we weren't just saved from something, we were saved for something. Because God didn't rescue you only to spare you from judgment. He redeemed you to reflect His kingdom wherever you go. We're new creation. We're called to carry His presence into our homes, into our work, into our relationships. And you notice in this scripture, Paul didn't say, whatever you feel like doing on Sunday. No, he said what? Whatever you do. Every role, every errand, every meeting, every messy, boring, frustrating, ordinary part of your life. That's all under the banner of Jesus. You're called to be salt and light. Not just when the lighting is good and the worship band is playing your favorite song, but when the Wi-Fi is acting up, the baby's screaming, your teenager is rebellion, and your patient feels about as sturdy as a $1 off-brand piece of toilet paper. You've been there. Jesus called us the light. Jesus called us the light of the world, not the sanctuary. So let's go deeper into this. That job you think doesn't matter, that's your mission field. You don't have to be a pastor to be in full-time ministry. You just have to be a believer who understands that God put you there for a purpose. You can either survive your job, or you can start seeing it as your assignment. That break room, that's holy ground. That Zoom call, that could be your pulpit. That difficult boss or stressed out client, they might never walk into a church, but guess what? They get to see you every week. They get to see you every day. What are they seeing? That's the next question. What are they seeing? And it's not just at work. Let's talk about our home life. Our kitchen, our dining room table, our car on the way to school or work. That's not just our house. That's our discipleship ground right there. Your kids are learning what grace looks like, not from your words, but from how you respond when they spill juice on the couch or forget to take the chicken out of the freezer again. Your spouse is watching how you love, how you forgive, how you show up when it's inconvenient. And can we talk about social media? Because if Jesus is Lord of all, then He's Lord of your posts and comments too. Yeah, even that not so nice reply that you almost posted last week on Mount Holly Town Talk before the Holy Spirit hit you with that delete that right now conviction. We've all been there. We've all been there. Mount Holly, Stanley Town Talk, Belmont, all these things. Your social media is either a platform or a pothole. And you got to choose wisely. Because it can either be a tool for encouragement or it can be a trap for ego and drama. And I know some of you thinking, but I'm not a preacher. Okay, here's the thing. You preach every single day without even opening your mouth. You preach with your attitude. You preach with your tone. You preach with your patience. You preach with how you respond when things go sideways. And there's this quote that gets thrown around. Usually I see it on social media. It says, preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. Now, whether or not St. Francis of Assisi actually said it or not, we'll let the scholars fight that one out. But regardless, that still preaches. Because our life is a sermon. It is. Every room you walk into, every relationship you touch, every space that you occupy, your life is saying something about what you believe and who you follow. The question is, what is it preaching? Are you pointing people towards Jesus with how you live? Or are you pointing them away? Because you may be the only Bible, you may be the only Jesus that someone sees and reads this week. And listen, this isn't about pretending to be perfect, by no means. This is about choosing to be intentional. It's about understanding that faith is not just about where you worship, it's about how you live. Because we were made for more than just church moments. We were made for everyday ministry right where we are. Which leads us into point 3. Ordinary moments are spiritual opportunities. And we've got this tendency, maybe it's just me, to think that spiritual impact has to look big, right? We think ministry means microphones, mission trips, and maybe a fog machine or two. We're waiting for the clouds to part and for God to show up in some dramatic Moses on the mountain moment with lightning bolts and an organ swell in the background. But you know what I've learned? Most of the powerful spiritual moments in our lives, they don't happen on a stage. No. They just happen in our everyday life. Sitting in the car in traffic, in a store, in a checkout line. We don't have to be in full-time ministry or to be in full-time mission for that. God is not waiting for us to arrive at this certain spiritual level before He starts using you. He wants to work through you right now in ways like, maybe while you're doing the dishes, maybe those errands you're running, chasing toddlers around, answering emails, or trying to figure out what's for dinner for the 5th night in a row. And don't miss this. These ordinary moments are not a distraction from your faith. These things are often the very place that your faith is most on display. Let's go to the Bible for a second. Romans 12:1 says this, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to present your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." A living sacrifice means your whole life is worship. Your whole life. Not just what you sing on Sunday, but on how you live Monday through Saturday. Not just your prayer time in the morning, but your attitude when someone cuts you off in traffic that afternoon. Worship isn't just a song, it's a response. And that means things like how you talk to your coworkers when that meeting goes bad or goes long again. How you treat your spouse when you're tired and emotionally fried. How you respond to your kids when they're testing every ounce of your last nerve and you are running on caffeine and God's grace. Looks like how you handle disappointment, delays, and detours. Every single one of those is a chance to either reflect Jesus or react in the flesh. And listen, I'm not saying that every day is going to feel spiritual, because that's not how it works. Some days you're going to feel like a spiritual nap. Some days you're not radiating glory, you're just flat out exhausted and hoping no one talks to you until you've had your coffee or a nap. Nap right here. But that's the beauty of this everyday faith. It's not about feeling holy. It's about being available. It's not about underestimating the spiritual weight of things like a kind word in a tense moment, or a gentle tone in a harsh world, or maybe a helping hand without expecting anything in return. A prayer whispered in the middle of your lunch break, or a quiet or quiet integrity when no one else is looking. That's where real ministry happens. You may never hold a microphone, but your faith can still echo in someone else's life because of how you showed up in the ordinary. Some of your greatest ministry won't be what you plan. It'll be how you respond. So don't miss this moment when you're waiting on a stage. Don't dismiss your job, your parenting, your daily grind as not spiritual enough. It's those spaces where your faith gets tested, it gets stretched, and most of all, it's revealed. So let me say it like this. If you only look for God in the big moments, you'll miss Him in the small ones. And the small ones are where He does some of His best work. Some of His best work. So don't underestimate the spiritual value of a kind word or being patient with someone or honest work. God doesn't need your perfection. He wants your participation. So what does that mean? Show up. Show up. Be present. Be faithful in the little things, because little things done with great faith become big things in God's hands. Number 4, integrity is the platform for influence. Integrity is the platform for influence. So here's where we kind of take a turn into the underrated side of our faith, of our everyday faith. Because if we're honest, being the light in the world sounds inspiring until Monday morning hits and you're standing in line at Starbucks and someone's trying to pay for their entire order with quarters and coupon they found in a 2006 magazine or something. And that's when your faith, right, is tested. That's when your integrity has to step in. Integrity isn't flashy. It's not viral, right? Nobody's posting on the Instagram reels like, yo, check this dude out. He's paying his taxes. He's not cheating on his mileage report that he gives to his boss. Hashtag integrity goals. It's not that. Integrity is the platform your influence stands on. If you want to be salt and light, you can't just be loud. You have to be consistent. People may not remember everything you say about Jesus, but they will remember whether or not your life matches your message. Because here's the deal. Being salt and light isn't always about preaching. It's often about how you live when nobody's watching. It's in those unseen moments. Do you cut corners when no one's looking? Do you talk about people behind their backs? Are you the same person in the boardroom as you are in the church pew? Some of us are like spiritual mullets. Spiritual mullets. What's that look like? Church in the front, chaos in the back. You're raising your hands during worship, but what you just last said in your group chat with some of your friends, that says otherwise. You post Bible verses on social media, but those Google reviews are scorched earth judgment day vibes. So focus in right here. If our lifestyle doesn't match our message, our witness loses credibility. You can have the most beautiful theology, the best Bible knowledge, all the right answers, but if people see hypocrisy in how you live, they're not listening to your words. They're watching your walk. And Scripture backs us up. Proverbs 11:3 says this: the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Which means they're living a double life, basically. Pretending to follow Jesus outwardly, but being dishonest or unfaithful inwardly. So you can think about it like this. That's smiling on Sunday, but you're scheming on Monday. You're saying God bless you with one breath and gossiping the next. Posting Bible verses while practicing shady business deals. In short, duplicity is the opposite of integrity. When it comes to integrity, it means walking in the light. Duplicity hides in the shadows. Integrity doesn't mean perfection, it means consistency. It means owning your mistakes. It means treating people with honor even when they don't return the favor. That one is hard. It means choosing what's right, even when it's inconvenient or unrecognized or even unappreciated. This is where influence grows. Because over time, people will notice that when things are going crazy around you, you're steady when you see others panicking. That you don't gossip when everyone else does. That you show up, that you stay late, and you take responsibility. That's what opens doors. Not just preaching, but living in a way that makes people go, there's something different. There's something different about them. And I want to know what that is. Because as followers of Jesus, we must live the same way on Monday through Saturday as we do on Sunday mornings. Because our greatest ministry might not be a message. It might be our example. Because, if we're honest, the world doesn't need louder Christians. It needs realer ones. Number 5, let your light shine with purpose. And if we're being honest, let your light shine sounds like one of those things we used to say in Sunday school, right? Before handing the kids flashlight and singing "This Little Light of Mine." But when Jesus said it, He wasn't giving us a catchy tune. He was giving us a mission. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Notice what Jesus didn't say. He didn't say, shine your light so people think you're awesome. He didn't say, shine your light so you get 100,000 followers and a pat on the back. He said, shine so they see God. So this is about living on purpose, not just with a personality. Because there's a danger to this. And that danger is we can start shining our light just to be seen instead of pointing people to Jesus. There's a big difference between being a spotlight and being a lighthouse. A spotlight says, look at me. A lighthouse says, let me guide you. One is about attention, the other is about direction. And if your light is all about drawing attention to you, don't be surprised when people stop short of finding Jesus. We are not the destination. We are just the signpost. We're not the answer. We're the ones holding the flashlight saying, I know the way. Follow me as I follow Christ. It can be practical just like this. Let your light shine on purpose. At work, show grace when others would blow up. Maybe at school, be kind when it's not trendy. At home, apologize first. Forgive faster. Online, post with wisdom. Don't fight battles God didn't call you to. And no, Jesus isn't scrolling your comments like, that's my keyboard warrior. He's not doing that. Here's the truth. And this kind of can be gut-wrenching. There's going to be some people out there, and they're not going to ask you, what church do you go to? They'll ask, why do you love like that? Why are you so patient? Why didn't you gossip about them when everyone else did? How did you stay calm when that situation was falling apart? That's when the door opens in those moments. That's when your light does more than just shine, it points. We don't live differently just to be weird, okay? We live differently to make Jesus visible, to make Him known. Because the sad truth is that the world we live in is a dark place. It's pretty evil if we're being honest. People are anxious, they're overwhelmed, they're cynical, they're confused, they're outraged. There are storms hitting people that we can't even see on the outside. So if you are the light of the world, don't hide it. Don't hide it. Don't dim it to fit in. Don't apologize for it. Don't waste it. Shine it bright, bold, unashamed, on purpose. Because people need hope more than ever. Now more than ever. They need direction. They need to see something real, and God puts you in their life, not to blend in, but to stand out for His glory. So think about this as you leave today. Just want to leave you with this question. Who in my life needs to see the gospel lived out through me this week? Who in my life needs to see the gospel lived out through me this week? And I don't mean preached at them or having them guilted into it, but letting them experience God's love for them in our actions and by how we live. Because you never know what that one smile, that one prayer, that one act of integrity, that one moment of kindness, you never know what that can do. So when you start questioning or doubting yourself, remember, you were made for more. And your light isn't meant to just flicker on Sundays. No, it's meant to shine all week. Because why? You were made for everyday faith. Because this isn't just about adding more to our schedules. It's about awakening what's already there and letting our faith fill it, fuel it, and flavor it. So we learned a couple different things. Faith is not a compartment, it's the center. We started here because if you miss this, you miss the whole point. Faith isn't meant to be tucked away in a little Sunday morning box. No, Jesus isn't asking for a slice of your pie. He wants to own the recipe. Your life isn't a Tupperware container, it's a stew. And if Jesus isn't in every part of it, He's not really Lord of any of it. That's the foundation of it. Then we saw represent Jesus where you are, because if Jesus isn't at the center, it means He goes with you everywhere. Because if Jesus is at the center, He goes with you everywhere. He goes with you to work, to school, to the grocery store. Even that Zoom meeting where no one turns their cameras on. Your job is your mission field. Your home is your discipleship ground. Your life is the loudest sermon that you will ever preach. The only question that you have to ask yourself is, what is it saying? And we saw ordinary moments are spiritual opportunities. And this one, it's easy to miss because we're always waiting on the big God moment, right? Like a burning bush or flash of lightning. But God works in laundry room and lunch breaks just the same. Because discipleship doesn't need a stage. What does it need? It needs availability. It needs your time. And when you show up with intentionality, even a Tuesday afternoon can become sacred, holy ground. Then we see integrity as the platform for influence. Because listen, your life has a spotlight on it whether you want it or not. If people know you follow Jesus, they're watching to see if the fruit matches the faith. And nothing ruins a witness faster than a life that's holy on Sunday and shady on a Monday. Let your life preach before your lips ever do. Let your light shine with purpose. Not randomly, not accidentally, not this performance. No. On purpose. Because the world is watching. And they need more than just this hype. They need hope. Because we're not called to shine to impress people. We're called to shine to lead them home. We're called to be a lighthouse, not a spotlight. Point people to Jesus, not yourself. So here's our challenge. This week, before we step into any space, whether that's our job, our homes, our classrooms, the gas station, maybe that awkward group text, pray this. Say, Jesus, help me represent you well here. Then ask yourself, how can I shine your light in this space today? Because we were made for more than just believing. We were made for living it out. We were made for everyday faith. And everyday faith, that's where God does His deepest work. So we need to live like it. We got to live like we actually believe that. We got to be the light. Let's be the light. Go ahead and stand.